welcome to Zoom with Czarny. I'm Dustin Czarny, Democratic Elections Commissioner of Onondaga County, and welcome to my interview show. Today is Friday, August 16th, and I'm interviewing Senator Rachel May. She's senator of the city of Syracuse, the southern towns and western towns of Onondaga County, and she reminded me in the interview all of Cayuga County, including the city of Auburn as well. We have a great discussion about what it's like to be on the campaign trail nowadays with this big change in the Democratic ticket on the presidential election. Her work on elections and other things in the New York State Senate over the last 6 years, and what she hopes to accomplish if you return her as your senator in the Senate District 48 for the next session. So stay tuned for that interview. We have a lot of things going on here at the Board of Elections, but also in our our country, as well as our state. I talked a little bit earlier this week in my commissioner in the car about Robert F. Kennedy being knocked off the ballot in New York. He has filed for appeal, and we expect an appeal on that. So there's still some open question there. We're going to have an appeal, or a lawsuit, anyways, on the ERA amendment language. This is actually kind of a weird lawsuit. Usually, lawsuit comes to stop a proposition from getting on the ballot, but this is actually to alter the language of the proposition. I talked a little bit about that in my commissioner in the car. That's going on right now. But mostly boards of elections throughout Onondaga County and also throughout the state are getting ready for Labor Day and trying to catch up on our voter registrations. So if you're interested in registering to vote or getting your early vote by mail, those don't go out till September 20th, you can go to onvote.net and it will you can apply to register to vote and get an absentee ballot online, with any right at our website, whether you're in Onondaga County or not. It links to the state board website, so it's all about New York State, but you can check that out. Well, that's all I got for you as a quick update. Please stay tuned for my interview with Senator Rachel May. She currently represents Senate District 48, which is the city of Syracuse, western towns of Onondaga County, southern towns of Onondaga County, and the entirety of Cayuga County. Enjoy. And we're back, and I'm very happy to have my good friend, Senator Rachel May, back on the program. She represents SD 48, which is the city of Syracuse, the southern tier of Onondaga County, and the western portions of Onondaga County, from Lysander all the way down to Skaneateles and over to Pompey. Senator, thanks for coming on Zoom with Czarny.
Thank you, Dustin. I'm always happy to be on. You forgot to mention that I also represent all of Cayuga County.
I forgot it. Yeah, well, it's Onondaga County focused podcast, but yes, you represent all of Cayuga County as well, including the city of Auburn, right, which is the other part of your district. Senator, we're now about 2 months past session. We were able to get together after the primary here and talk about what's happened. But let's talk about session. The session ended. It wasn't as dramatic as past sessions. We had a late budget, but that seems to be always the case nowadays. But and it's always been the case, kind of. It seems like it's the budget issues are always there. But what are some of the successes that you see in this last session, including your own?
Yeah, so we had some big things that we passed right toward the end of the session. We passed the bill to protect children from addictive feeds. We did a lot for maternal health, the health of pregnant women and newborns and mothers with newborns. We did I just had a bill signed into law that is about our democracy. We did a lot. We kept trying to expand the access to the ballot and to the voting booth. So this one allows 17-year-olds who have pre-registered and will be 18 by the time of the election. It allows them to get an absentee ballot, which was not possible for them before. So just one more way that we're kind of smoothing the process of people who are eligible to vote to actually be able to vote.
Yeah, and you're on the election law committee, and you've actually had a lot of success with bills being passed in the Senate. Our friends in the Assembly, not so much, but you don't control that. You're a
Right.
senator, and your bills in the Senate. You had a couple of other bills that I think are incredible bills. The portable polling places or temporary early voting polling places for early voting, as well as the vote center bills. These are two bills that I know that your office has been pushing. You've passed them out of the Senate a couple of times. They would also expand our democracy quite a bit if the Assembly would ever decide that they even want to have a vote on it. That would be nice.
Yeah, I think one of the dynamics is some of these bills are more relevant to upstate than to New York City, and it can be harder in the Assembly, I think, to get traction for bills like that. So we'll keep working on those. We passed, after several years, my Psi Act, which is inspired by the MLK school in Syracuse, which is practically right underneath I-81, which is an unsafe and unhealthy place for kids to be learning. So we passed a bill that said they're not going to build future schools that close to major highways. I think that's a great bill for kids and for public health.
Yeah, and hopefully things will get better for MLK once 81 comes down. Finally saw that the end of the legislation on that has or the litigation on that has gone
Right.
forward, and now we just we got about a decade worth of work, but hopefully that will help the lives of the future residents of the MLK school as well. So we talked about session, and some of your successes, and we talked about a couple of bills that your election related bills that maybe didn't get passed by the Assembly, but what are some of the things that you're hoping to get done? You're running for reelection. We're going to talk about your campaign a little bit, but next session and future sessions, what are some of the things that you feel like have been left on the table that you really want to continue to work
Yeah, so two of the big disappointments for me at the end of the session, one was my bill, one was Senator Harkin's bill, but these were waste reduction bills. So I carry the bill to expand New York's bottle bill, which has removed billions of cans and bottles from the waste stream, but could remove many, many, many more if we could increase the deposit, increase the types of beverages that are covered by it, and make it work more smoothly, which was what my bill was designed to do. But we weren't able to pass that at the end of the session. And the companion bill to that is Senator Harkin's bill on extended producer responsibility for packaging in general, that says if you're producing or selling packaging, if you're Amazon and you're shipping lots of boxes, or you're bottling, well, the bottle bill would take care of the bottles, but packaging other materials, the companies that are selling or producing those materials have to figure out what's going to happen to them at the end of their usefulness. And they have to either take them back or make them recyclable in some way so that they're not just adding to the waste stream. And these are hugely important. We live just east of Seneca Meadows landfill. The company that owns Seneca Meadows in Texas is trying to expand that landfill. The people of the Finger Lakes do not want to be known as the trash capital of the world. They want to be known for their beauty and the beauty of their landscapes and their their wine and their tourism and good jobs and that kind of thing, and not for a landfill. So we want to make sure that there is an alternative to just continuing to throw stuff away. Also, when it comes to the climate crisis, waste is a huge piece of our greenhouse gas emissions and our effect on the climate, as well as our effect on the oceans with plastic pollution. So these are really important bills to me and a lot of other people, but they're difficult to put together. You're really making sausage when you're making those bills, and there's always opposition, and getting past that has been really tough.
And climate change is one of the reasons why I know that you got into the race for Senate in 2018. And I should have done this at the start of the program, but you've been a senator now for 6 years, but it was your first run for public office when you became a senator in 2018. And you had a varied background before then. I don't think people realize that you didn't always come from the world of politics. What was your background, and why did you decide to get in the race in 2018?
Yeah, so I was a college professor for quite a while, and then I worked at Syracuse University as the director of sustainability education, which meant I was training faculty and students about climate change, about waste reduction, about pollution of various kinds, and also working on research projects with faculty and students. So climate was very important to me. It's extremely frustrating that it's taken so long for people to recognize just how critical it is and how dangerous it is that we're continuing to heat the planet and the oceans. But I also was very involved in democracy issues. And I think the number one issue that bothered me was I was talking to my sister on election day in 2016, and she said, well, I already voted. I voted on Sunday when there were hundreds of us waiting in line to vote for Hillary Clinton. And I was just so mad that we didn't have early voting. Almost every state in the country had early voting except New York State. And I went to my senator and I said, why don't we have early voting? He said, well, we just can't get it brought to a vote on the floor. And I was just like so frustrated with that I thought somebody's got to make him do this. And I thought if I ran against him, he would be a better senator. And I beat him. I wasn't expecting that early on. But the very first vote we took when I got in the Senate was to create early voting in New York State. And so that felt like a really good full circle.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it was, right? I mean, we had Republicans in charge of the Senate with the help of some Democrats that were caucusing with them, although technically by 2018, I think the Republicans had a numerical number in the Senate. But finally, Democrats ran statewide, including ousting the IDC and ousting several Republican senators to actually get outright control of state government for the first time since early 2000s, I believe it was. And that made a big difference in our democracy because we were able to pass early voting. We were able to pass a June primary. We were able to pass universal registration, which is at the state level, which doesn't, many people don't realize how big of a difference that makes. And then over the last few years, you've been on the election law committee. You've been able to do early vote by mail, which has been held up now in the courts, getting rid of the wrong church, wrong pew, that will make more affidavits count. And going into this presidential election, I think the biggest change is the 10-day registration, which, made it so that we have more time to register voters, maybe making it harder on me to get those voters registered, but we'll be ready. But also having Golden Day, which is like same day registration on the first day of early
Yeah.
voting, and you've been on the election law committee throughout that time. What what's it been like to be at the forefront of changing New York's democracy?
It's been exciting. I mean, Senator Myrie, who chairs the committee, his thing is we want to go from worst to first, because we did have the worst election. One of the ways that Republicans maintained control of the Senate was by maintaining control of our election laws and making it as hard as possible to vote. So I feel like that's been huge. It's also been really illuminating. It's been upsetting to see how the Republicans on the committee just in lockstep vote against anything that makes our elections run more smoothly, even to the point this year there was a bill that was correcting a typo in a previous bill that had referenced the wrong section of the election law, and they were fixing that. And they voted against correcting a typo in a piece of election law. I mean, it was shocking to me that they are so just uniformly opposed to doing anything about election law. Last year, we passed the bill to move the town and county races to even years, which just makes so much sense. It's, you go from elections that have 25 or 30% turnout to elections that have 60 to 70% turnout. You're just, that's just better voter input. But their arguments were so disturbing, frankly. They said, oh, well, in these low turnout elections, what you're getting is the high information voters, the more informed voters vote in those odd years. And that was just, I thought, insulting and self-serving in a really
I'm glad you
disturbing.
mentioned that, because that has been one of the most insane arguments I've heard in a long time. I mean, it's like they're giving up the ghost a little bit there when they use this argument, because they use that on the even year bill. They use this on moving elections from March to November. They always, you know, portray that lower voter turnout means you get a better class of voters. It seems like a more informed class, and thus inherently better, as opposed to understanding that every citizen has a right to vote and choose their own governed leaders, and it's up to us to inform them, not to keep democracy in some kind of secret cabal that is only ruled by the people who know when the elections are. And um it's just, I'm glad you called that out, because that's frustrated me as well for such a long time.
Yeah. So anyway, it's opened my eyes to just how divided we are on this whole idea of elections, and how they're always saying, oh, anything you do to make it easier to vote is going to have, people who aren't citizens voting, and that just doesn't happen. They're always bringing out these scare tactics about things that are really myths, I think.
Yeah, like without any shred of evidence or logical causation. They just ramp this stuff out, and it's and but the Senate and the Assembly, for the most part, has stayed the course. You've expanded our democracy, and that's a lot of the reason of that is because you've been on the elections law committee for the last 6 years, pushing for Central New York, pushing for upstate New York, and and to not be to be heard in these election law decisions as well. And we have a pretty big election going on this year, right? You're running in a presidential term. This is your second time running in a presidential term, but the first time in a non-COVID presidential term. And I think it would be remiss not to talk about the remarkable change in fortunes, it seems like, of the Democratic Party, which you're a member of and will benefit from as well. The decision by President Biden not to run, and the coalescing around Vice President Kamala Harris, and now her vice presidential nominee, Governor Tim Walz from Minnesota. Um, what do you think about all this? Are you noticing a change? You were in the race before, you're in the race now. Have you noticed a change in excitement or, groundswell that even down ballot candidates might be
Oh,
seeing?
absolutely. We've been having Saturday canvas launches every week. And so we had one the day before Biden made that announcement, and 2 people showed up. And then we had one the following week, and it was over 30 people. Okay. So yes, people are eager to get involved. And I think there was a holding pattern for a while that people just didn't quite know what was going to happen and were waiting for the other shoe to drop. But it was we definitely see it, and lots of people coming into our office and wanting to know how they can help. And I think, recognizing that we can flip the Congress, the House of Representatives this year. And so I think it's really started or charged up the Senator Mannion's campaign for Congress.
Yeah, for
But
those who don't know, and if you're watching this program, I'd be very surprised that you don't know this, but Senator Mannion is your counterpart and in Senate 50, but has decided not to run. In fact, we interviewed Chris Ryan, who's trying to run for his seat last week. Um, so Senator Mannion's running for Congress, and we have one of the top rated flips in the country. So we can talk, it's not just theoretical about the presidential change, because we have a battleground congressional race right here in our area. And so but you also have a race. You do not, your seat has changed. It's the second time you're running in this seat. It had a drastic change during redistricting where you went from east to west. And I know that's, you didn't have that much time to get to know the newer part of your district, but you rightfully corrected me at the top of this program that Cayuga is a big part of your district. And so what's it been like campaigning now for a second time, knowing what your district is, and getting to know the newer parts of your district a little bit better over the last couple of years?
yeah, well, it's definitely easier the second time around, partly because I've been working with all these communities. I know people everywhere in the district now, and I know kind of what the issues are, what the pressure points are in different parts of the district. And you're right, I think it was May that we were given our districts in 2022, and we had already had, I had 2 different new districts that I thought I might be running in, and I had spent a lot of time in Utica and Cortland trying to meet people there because I thought they were going to be in my district, and all of a sudden I was going to Auburn and meeting people there, and it was just exhausting, frankly. And we all felt like we'd been running for years for that race and that year. It's much easier now, just in the terms of, like, I know where people are. I know what I've been to every part of the district. But it's a very large district. It goes up to Fairhaven on Lake Ontario. It goes down to Aurora on Cayuga Lake, and pretty far south of Aurora, almost to Cortland. And and Baldwinsville is new in my district. That's a very large part of the Onondaga County population. So yeah, there's a lot that's new, and I wouldn't say better or worse than what I had before. It's just been a learning curve this last few years.
And it's an incredibly diverse district. You have your urban centers in Auburn and Syracuse. Then you have your like suburban communities like in Lysander and some of the areas right around Auburn there. And then you have your really rural districts, as well, and agricultural, areas, and of course a lot of wetlands in there as well, and lakes. That's pretty hard to represent a district
Yeah.
with those amount of diverse voices, with sometimes competing interests inside the district itself. Um, how have you navigated that? Have been some of your strategies to navigate that?
So I have a little bit of advantage because I chair the committee on upstate cities. It's called Cities 2. I basically recommended that the majority leader create this committee because there was a committee about New York City, but not one about all the other cities in the state. And I chair that committee.
And
So
there are other cities in the state besides New
that's
York
right.
City, including Syracuse.
Our
Yeah.
upstate cities especially have really common problems: high poverty, large refugee populations. That's not a problem, but they have common factors. There are a lot of things they have in common. But I also am the chair of the Legislative Commission on Rural Resources. And so I work the rural and the urban a lot. The suburban is where I don't wear a hat that says suburban, but certainly for the urban parts of my district and the rural parts of my district, and I'm on the agricultural committee, I'm pretty involved in those areas. I will say the number one thing that I discovered when I got this new district was that outside of Syracuse, everywhere I went, when I asked people, what's the number one issue on your mind? It was water quality, water quantity, flooding. It was the lakes, the Finger Lakes, Lake Ontario, Seneca River. These loom extremely large in people's lives in that whole part of my district that is new. And so that's been actually a really good fit for me because I've worked a lot on watershed issues, both when I was at Syracuse University and in the Environmental Conservation Committee in the Senate. So I actually have a lot to talk about with people, and I've learned a lot from meeting with people who work on the different watershed preservation associations and that kind of thing. So, and I've introduced a lot of important legislation that relates to that. So it's turned out to be a really good district for me.
So let's talk about reelection, because you are up for reelection. We've talked about the meat of representing a district like this, but campaigning in a district like this and asking people for their vote is very important, because you do have an opponent. 2 years ago, in a very Republican year, you were able to hang on and win, and against a pretty well-known opponent. The opponent this time may not be as well known, but he did win a Republican primary. And I know you have a robust campaign plan. So talk about, what your plan is between now and November 5th, and why maybe people should support you. And a lot of the audience of this podcast are going to be in your district. So here's your time.
All right. Well,
what is your plan?
Yeah, so we've already got both some paid staff and a lot of volunteers going out door to door, knocking on doors, especially on the weekends. We'd love to have people come join us. You can come 10 o'clock to our campaign office in Hanover Square in Syracuse, and we'll give you a turf to go out and knock doors. We are doing phone banking as well. I've just yesterday got approved a new Palm card, so we've got new literature that we're going to be using. And it was fun because we did the photo shoot with a high school student who's been doing a lot of photography here in the area. So it was nice to be able to do that. The Democratic Senate Campaign Committee is also going to be helping out with some television and digital advertising. We don't really generate any of that, but there will be some of that too. And we'll do a bunch of mailers in this fall. So generally we figure that people aren't paying that much attention until after Labor Day. So that's when we really ramp up at trying to make sure that we're reaching every voting household in the district one way or another. And I have to say, for me, I always worry about elections. I know this is a district that can go either way, and a pretty generic Republican is likely to get 45% of the vote no matter what. But everywhere I go, people have been so encouraging and so, coming up to me totally randomly at the grocery store or wherever and thanking me for the work that I do. And I've had a lot of Republicans who have said they support me because they recognize, even though they don't always agree with me on the issues, they feel like I tell the truth. They feel like I am somebody they can trust. They can see that I'm working hard and that I show up everywhere in the district, and that matters to people. I think a lot of the polarization that we see in our country has to do with people having just closed off from each other, and the more that we can listen to each other and just show that we recognize that everybody is struggling in one way or another, and that I want to listen and hear what the problems are. People recognize that, that's what I'm about. So that it's been really encouraging when I'm making phone calls or going out door to door. People tend to be really positive.
And presidential elections, you're not trying to generate turnout as much as riding the wave. You still got to generate some turnout, but especially with the change in fortunes that we've had in our party, however brief it may be, hopefully it'll last for a while. But it looks like there's sometimes you just got to break through the noise, and the only way you can do that is by continuing to work the way you've laid that out. Well, we're kind of getting towards the end of the time I like to spend on these podcasts. So we'll end with my favorite lazy question here about what haven't we talked about, Senator? Whether it's something personal about the campaign, about your Senate work. Floor is yours. Last thing you want to leave the voters with before the end of the podcast.
So let me brag a little bit about one of the things I'm most proud about in my time in office. I've been in office for 6 years, and I have a tremendous staff who do so much for the people of this district. And the core 5 members of that staff are the same people I hired when I first came into office. And if you go to almost any other legislative office in this state, the turnover will have been far higher than that. So I am really proud that we've created a team and we work together really well. And we do tremendous work for the 48th district and for the whole state. I think there a lot of legislators and their staffs come to my staff for advice, and or people in the assembly are always asking me to be their sponsor of their bills in the Senate, because we get things done and we are really responsive and efficient. And so I'm really proud of that. Some people don't talk very much about the actual day-to-day work of their offices, but I'm proud to talk about mine.
Well, and your staff is always welcoming to me when I come to Albany, and so I always appreciate that as well. So, Senator, thank you again for coming on Zoom with Czarny. I'll put all of your website information in the show notes so people can follow you, help campaign, work on your campaign, get to know you a little bit better. But you've been an incredible servant. You're not just a senator, you're my senator. I live in the city of Syracuse, so you've always done a great job representing our interests. So I wish you well on the campaign trail this year.
Can I say one more thing? Because if you live in the district, I fought really hard for the public matching funds, and it totally transformed the way we raise money for our campaign. It's really all about the people who live in the district. Their donations get matched about 10 times by the state. It's a huge match, and it's really, really helpful to my campaign. So if you go to rachelmay.org and make a donation, if you live in the district, please know that your donation will be matched.
Yeah, we didn't talk much about it this time. I know we've talked about the public campaign finance on your other yearly appearances on here, but man, that campaign matching fund program has really done wonders so far. And I think it's in its infancy, but it hopefully not only will branch out to local campaigns at some point, but it continue to allow people like yourself to get into politics who want to get into politics. If you had that in 2018, what a change it could have been. I mean, you still won, but it would have been a lot easier. And we could definitely use more citizens just deciding to get involved in our local government. So
it's the playing field, and it makes it easier for people, ordinary people, to get involved. Yeah, it's
absolutely. Well, Senator, thank you very much for coming on Zoom with Czarny, and good luck in this year's campaign.
Thank you, Dustin. Thanks for all the great work you do.
And that was my interview with Senator Rachel May. Always good to have her on. She is my senator, and I'm very proud of the work she's done on elections in New York, and working with her office on a variety of those bills is wonderful to see. This week, Weekly Wonk, I plan on getting back on the horse and doing the city of Syracuse. I have the data. I'm ready to go. So that will go up this weekend. Commissioner in the car next week will be all about the Democratic National Convention. That is, will be going on from the 18th to the 22nd. So that's we'll be in the middle of that by Tuesday of next week. So I'll be talking a little bit about the Democratic National Convention. Zoom with Czarny next week is Dave Capria. He is the Clay Town Board candidate running to fill a position up in the biggest town in Onondaga County. And it's a weird election. It's happening this year because of a vacancy. So stay tuned for that conversation. Actually, that Zoom with Czarny is not going to be next week. It's going to be 2 weeks from now, as next week I will be doing my first Czarny seminar of the year on how to register to vote. That will be in place of the Zoom with Czarny. It'll be on Friday. I'll be talking about how to register to vote in New York. So online voter registration, DMV voter registration, and paper form registrations. I will cover all of that, as well as all the deadlines. So as always, go to dustinczarny.com. You can subscribe and get email notifications of any content or election news that I post there. And thank you very much, and enjoy your week. Bye-bye.